Tuesdays. We got chocolate. We're gonna have a chocolate cakes. Oh, shouldn't. Solid for 11 o'clock. Halfway point.
Just I had some raw onion with the salad and tea tonight. So
Yeah.
Need my little chocolate.
Oh, yes, okay. We have a coffee cakes. Should. Yes. Yes. I think, was this Steve Jobs is a minute in front of Bill Gates? He is. Good.
Good evening and welcome to the ordinary council meeting on the 24th of October 2023. I'd like to start with the acknowledgement of the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land. The City of Prospect acknowledges that we are on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. Now the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Thank you. Before we get into the agenda, I just thought I might take this opportunity to recognise Ginny Moon, the Director of City Corporate. Ginny, you don't have to stand up or anything like that. This is Ginny's last council meeting with us tonight. By my calculations, Ginny's been here for 21 years, so that's 21 budgets, 250 meetings or thereabouts, and maybe up to 500 workshops. And she's attended every single one of them, full of knowledge, full of grace and humour, and she's just been an incredible support to not only this group of elected members, but everyone who's been here for the last 21 years. So I'd just like to offer up my thanks to Ginny, wish her all the best for the future. We might have a round of applause, I think. No right of reply, Ginny. Item 2 on the agenda, on leave, nil. Item 3 on the agenda, apologies, nil. Item 4 on the agenda, declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Councillor Barnett?
Yes, item 10.4, the annual community grants, community support fund. I'm a Prospect Local History Group member, and they are part of the grants schedule there. So I declare a general conflict of interest. I'll stay, but I'll not vote.
Councillor Backer.
Same with me, member of the local history group, so I'll stay with one vote.
I'm also a member of the Eagles Cross Club, and I'm not going to be voting anyway, and I'll stay. Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion? All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, public question time. So public question time gives us up to 15 minutes for questions from members of the public. Is there anyone who has a question in the audience today? No one at all. Okay. Item 7, petitions nil. Item 8, deputations. Firstly, I'd like to invite Luke Sebastiani from the Colin Grove Tennis Club to approach the table for his deputation. Just as a reminder, you've got, come up to the table. You've got 5 minutes, and I'll give you a minute's warning.
I circulate this week. This was something that I circulated to Sam. I'm not sure if it's, did anyone receive this? Sam Glenna.
Did he or did he not?
As presented, being surveyed to let us with the M4.
Oh, yes, we did.
Okay, when you're ready, your time starts now.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for hearing me out tonight. So Broadview have been presented on Sam's recommendations with having a higher community benefit, and with Broadview's community benefit, they are showing that they're ticking a lot of the boxes and doing a great job in terms of inclusion, in terms of disability, and some areas like that. Where we feel that we do a really good community benefit is actually sharpening the minds of a lot of the young kids coming through. So there's obviously no secret that with the kids coming through these days with technology, social media, and a lot of key fundamental changes that are happening in society, this is really having a massive impact. And we're seeing kids more confused, really like struggling with identity, confidence, and very distracted. So part of our solution is creating an environment where we can actually hone in on those areas. And what we do at Adelaide Tennis Academy in our own way to really benefit the community, which maybe wasn't highlighted on some of the documentation that Sam has shared with you guys, as it's something that we've been really kind of fostering in our culture as part of the group is developing. But we actually want to give kids the skills to actually develop core values such as discipline, resilience, hard work, patience, gratitude, accountability, and respect, and actually having tools to manage the stress and anxiety that's rippling through society at the moment. And I'm sure many of you guys are parents, and you've probably seen what's going on with maybe your own kids or just the school nature or some of their social groups. And the way we're doing this is actually really helping kids have tools to manage stress in terms of breathing, in terms of actually having routines, rewiring thought patterns and how you actually reprogram the way you're thinking about things and shaping your narrative around what you're speaking about yourself and how you speak about yourself. I think these are underrated skills and tools that can actually help kids develop a very, very strong mental state to actually navigate some of the complexities going on in the world. And while we understand that this is very different to what Broadview are doing, we feel like this is actually a massive community benefit that can actually make massive change in the Prospect Council for some of the sharp minds coming through our academy and just our club in general. So I'll give you one case study. So when Matt first came to Collin Grove Tennis Club to build the business, there was only one student, one boy. He was 12 years old. His name was Dylan. Now, fast forward 8 or 9 years, he's gone all the way through our system. He became the top student at Marrickville High School. He has been in our coaching team for the last 4 years. He has now become our social media manager. He is now mentoring the kids that are his age when he first came. And he actually took us out for his 21st birthday to say a big thank you. Like a big thank you, really big thank you for the mentorship and just guidance and gratitude for that. And that's just one story. And that's what we're really striving for. We actually want to create an environment where we're actually helping some of these kids come through and actually make a difference in this council, make a difference in the Prospect community. So another one here. So Nathan has been a valued member of ATA since he was 10 years old. So he's currently in year 11 at Prince Albert College and the top performer in his IB program. He said to me over a year ago that he has aspirations of getting into an Ivy League college in America. So we've set out to work towards that goal. And Nathan is very impressive and has taken on these values and principles that we teach with full commitment. And recently he was chosen as a school prefect in year 12 at Prince Albert College in 2024. So one message he sent me recently when he revealed that news that he became a prefect in year 12 was that he can definitely say that your inputs in my journey and my tenors have developed me as a person, as a leader. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to create leaders. We're trying to actually benefit the community in a different way. And we just feel that we don't want to do it the same way Broadview do because they're doing a great job at doing it in their way. And we actually want to do it in our way. And I feel like we can actually come together and really create something where we do what we're best at and helping the kids become sharper and actually have tools to navigate the complexities in the world. And then Broadview do their part. And then from there, we can actually work towards strength to strength and actually coexist and really benefit communities in both ways. Thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Sebastiani?
I just have one, just in terms of the options in front of us tonight.
Sure.
How do you feel you can work with Broadview, depending on which option we land on?
In terms of sublease and head lease?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of the relationship, because I think the elephant in the room is that it's been a strained relationship over many, many years. I'm not suggesting it is right now.
Yeah.
How would you go about working with Broadview?
Yeah, we definitely feel that it can work as Broadview as head lease and then us as sublease. We have no concerns with that. We feel if we're given our opportunity to do what we do best, and then Broadview do what they do best, and then us communicating as a medium. So between like Martin and myself, for example, I feel Martin and myself, like we have a good relationship. We talk often about results and sharing kids, like I mentioned in the previous meeting. And I don't see why we can't actually come together in that way.
Thank you.
Any further questions from Mr. Sebastiani? That being the case, thanks very much for your
Thanks, guys.
presentation.
Cheers.
8.2, deputation from Mr. Clinton Devonish from the Broadview Tennis Club.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've got 5 minutes and time to start now.
Clinton Devonish, the Vice President of the Broadview Tennis Club and local Nailsworth resident. Thank you, Mayor Larwood, for having me. Thank you to the elected members, CEO, the directors here tonight, and the City of Prospect staff. The topic of discussion tonight is item 10.1 on the agenda, which is the Broadview Oval Tennis Precinct and the operating governance model. Just wanted to talk through a few points just to provide some clarity on behalf of the Broadview Tennis Club. Both of the reports, both of the recommendations tonight support the administration to commence negotiations on developing the head lease with Broadview Tennis Club. We just wanted to start by confirming that the Broadview Tennis Club has the intent and the capability to enter into those negotiations. So just wanted to be clear on that. And we do have the desire to take on the long-term head lease for the benefit of the local community. Finding the new governance model arrangement is crucial to the ongoing success of the precinct, and it aligns with council's towards 2040 community plan. And that plan suggests that council is to develop model governance frameworks for sporting and community groups, of which this would be one, to facilitate greater opportunities for involvement and access by residents to their facilities across the city of Prospect. Broadview Tennis Club also supports the application of the flat fees, which are contained in the report tonight. And one thing to consider would be the number of sub-leases or licenses entered into under the head lease. So from our reading of the report, the viability of the sporting and community precinct really relies on a simple governance framework that supports the local community having access to coaching and tennis programs that provide a pathway for them to join their club and participate in health and fitness activities. At the Broadview Tennis Club, this approach that is proposed by the City of Prospect administration is supported by our strategic plan. We also welcome other community groups and other sports to access the facility and have the opportunity to enjoy the sporting spirit of Prospect. We currently operate a sinking fund, and that is deliberate as part of our strategy to make sure that we do have the available funding and balance. And currently we have over $100,000 in that sinking fund. And we see this as imperative to the maintenance and operation of not only the current facility, but any future facility at the site, and to enable the community to enjoy that for the next 50 to 100 years. How the sublease and license agreements operate and come together is an important consideration that we will continue to work with your administration on. We really look forward to that process. So we just want to thank you for your consideration of the recommendations tonight and confirm that we really look forward to working with council, working with administration, and working with the various sublease and license agreements that will be in play. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Devenish? Deputy Mayor Greg.
Just in fairness, can I ask the same question? How do you feel you go working with, as a club, with Colin Grove?
On behalf of the Broadview Tennis Club, councillor, I think a solid governance framework will actually clear up a lot of the previous history that has occurred between the two clubs, because there's been a lack of clarity, in terms of how the precinct can operate and how multiple clubs can operate under the one banner. So I think, if anything, a head lease agreement with sublease that will give some clarity to not only the clubs, but council in terms of how the site can operate and provide that benefit for the community. And I think both clubs play a role in that. But depending on the recommendation that's agreed to tonight by council, I think in any case, it will provide the clarity that we're able to work together. Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions? Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Devenish.
Thank you.
Item 8.3, I'd like to invite Martin Richards of Mr. Tennis to approach the table. You've got 5 minutes as well, and your time starts now.
Thank you for your time this evening. I support the notion of the as a service provider contributing towards the use of the facility. I'm excited by the opportunity to enter into a simple operating model that can benefit the community. Tennis is a game for all people to enjoy, and a simple coaching to provide the community with the skills to enjoy the game even further, develop a love and play of the game competitively. Mr. Tennis, however, preferred to contribute the funding directly to the club, to the precinct. I support the simplified flat fee structure, but as Tennis SA has suggested, I would like to see that money invested back into the grassroots tennis by making sure that we have high quality courts, decent community facilities, access to toilets, places to watch, socialise and create a community atmosphere. I play an active role in junior and senior development and player retention at Broadview Tennis Club. And under the new operating model, I am committed to maintaining this and being a part of the future development upgrade. I do have a concern that too many licenses will be issued, which may impact the access to courts and cause disruption to community access, club members, and and to the competition playing and people representing the city of Prospect. I feel as a service provider, I have established an outstanding relationship with the club and its committee. Therefore, I believe an agreement with the club will be more suitable for my long-term stability of my business. I've been at the club for just over 30 years, and I'm really passionate about being heavily involved in what I can believe to be the best community tennis club in South Australia. With all the interest the new facility will generate, social tennis, competition tennis, and just generally people wanting to come and play at the club, I'm committed to continue to run my current Tennis SA programs, plus expanding to local tournaments, grassroots levels and beyond. I feel my role as club coach is to get the children introduced into the game and to play at the club. My coaching programs are designed so that children learn to be able to play the game of tennis and then align directly into the club. This is what motivates me, excites me. I get an enormous amount of pleasure seeing the progression of these young kids coming into the competition. And for a perfect example, on the weekend, we had 14 new Orange Ball players come into the club and compete for the first time. I was out there, I helped them, and just seeing those kids learning to play the game and being involved in the club, and that just sets their journey for the rest of their playing career through the club. So that's just my piece from the club point of, for the coaching point of view.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Richards? Deputy Mayor
Can you
Gregg?
guess what it's going to be?
Go ahead.
Look, same question as the others. How do you feel you can work with the other, with Colin Grove if there's a joint lease on the site?
Yep, I don't think there's any problem. I think Finn summed it up. Once we've got that
Yeah.
governance model in place, everything will fall into place.
Okay.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you.
Okay. Item 9 on the agenda, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Stanley,
Do I stand?
if you want.
No, sit down then. This is through the chair. This one is from a resident, and I'll just read what she wrote me. Could you please find out what will be the proposed future use of the newly created open space surplus land that has been created after the DIT upgrade on the corner of Nottage Terrace and North East Road, Collinswood?
CEO.
My understanding is that that land will be offered for sale by DIT at some point in the future in a process not dissimilar to that discussed with members in relation to the surplus site behind the Pocket Park on Main North Road. That has not yet happened. My previous discussions with DIT, and I'll admit this was some time ago, suggested that they expect that will end up as housing blocks, but my understanding also is that council will get an opportunity to make an offer on that land were we minded to do so. Mr. Delano, do you have anything to add?
Further to that, thank you, through the mayor. Speaking with the project manager of the transport and city planning, this matter hasn't yet gone through the formal process. It gets offered through the disposal process, goes through the state government agency first. If no agency expresses interest, it gets offered to the council. And then at that point, if the council weren't wanted to express an interest, you would then go to public market. So there is a section of landscaping in front of the allotment, about effectively 2 to 2.5 meters behind the back of the footpath. That is yet to be landscaped. That's to occur imminently, and that is effectively council land. So the trees and those plantings are proposed there, as well as an opportunity for future artwork and the provision for power at some point. They would try to council might do that.
Thank you. I think that answers the question. Thank you.
Councillor Back.
Yes, thank you. Several members of the Prospect Arts Community have contacted elected members regarding the impending sale of late artist Benny Newmarch's house at Beatrice Street. Though such a purchase didn't form part of our strategic plan, or draft strategic plan, they do run artists and residents programs in other areas. I'm just wondering, do we currently have a donation sponsorship or request policy? So if someone was of a mind to donate their property for that purpose, do we have such a policy?
So,
I don't believe so. Ms. Mooney, are you aware of such a policy? I will say this was an issue when council received about a year and a half ago a donation towards the men's shed. There was no defined process, it's unusual for people to donate money to councils, but
We've had Barker Gardens donated to us. That was back in 1938. But certainly, if we had a policy, people might be of the mind, especially for a purpose like the arts community. It might be something that the council would have.
council to consider potentially.
Thank you.
any further questions, councillor Nelson?
Yeah, I do have a question regarding a confidential matter, which makes it a bit difficult. But I also understand that we have potentially some urgent business to take care of that may come under the confidential, may require a confidential session. Just seeking leave from the mayor that if that confidential session does occur, just to seek leave to ask the question during that session, please.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions for that notice? Okay, moving on to reports for decision. Item 10.1, Broadview Oval Tennis Precinct Operating Governance Model. There are two recommendations proposed. Would anyone like to move either of those options? Councillor Green.
I'm happy to move one to get on the table and have no doubt some riveting debate on this because it is such an important decision for us as a community. I am going to endorse option 2, which is the single head lease, and I want to give some explanation as to why I want to do that. The first is when we went out to market back in March this year for this process, we had a fairly static, or static's probably not the right word, but we had a very clear set of criteria, and that was around community, around infrastructure, around finance and governance. So that was well known to everybody who was participating in the tender, whether they're here tonight or not. And we had a very, I think, objective process in terms of trying to evaluate the responses. And I look at the papers tonight and I'm reminded that the tennis club scored, one scored 81, one scored 32. And from a coaching perspective, one scored 30, one scored 15. And knowing that there are some independent people on that panel as well. So my first port of call is there's an existing tender process and evaluation process that shows a fairly significant disparity between the scores. Now, I'm not going to argue the merits of those scores or whether they're correct or not correct. That's what we had presented to us, and that's what the panel came up with. So that's my first port of call. There's a very big disparity between those two scores. The second issue for me is that we heard from both clubs when they presented to us that they're both oversubscribed. And so if I look at a scenario where we have 2 leases with 2 tennis clubs, we're still going to have a scenario where all the courts are oversubscribed. And I don't understand what we've achieved by doing that, because the idea is to build capacity in the club and ensure that we've got enough room for both clubs to expand. They both had very, very bold expansion plans. And I don't know how we achieve that with 2 clubs on site. So that's my second point. My third point is that this option, while for Collingwood probably looks like the end of the road, still provides opportunity for Broadview to negotiate with them for spare capacity on the courts. Now, that sounds contradictory to what I just said, but we know that the courts aren't used 12 hours a day every day. We know that. So there is some latent capacity within the existing courts that could be negotiated with the other club. And I think in moving option 2, it gives the capacity for that to happen. And hence, probably my questions earlier about could they work together within the context of having a head lease, but also having not 2 leases with each club, but having the one club given the lease and one club being able to actually work with the other one on latent capacity within the courts. So it was those 3 things that really struck me when I was reading the paper and trying to think through what I'd do. I'd like to start at that point and open it up from there to see if there's a seconder for the option 2, but that's what I've moved tonight.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to second the second option. Very similar thoughts as the Deputy Mayor. We obviously noticed in the EOI, the submissions, they were vastly different in both the quality and the governance layouts. I think we've got to be careful that we keep things simple for council. Councils and government departments tend to make things very difficult. I think the easier we can make it with the less leases, the better. I acknowledge that both clubs and the coaching clinics do offer a good product and are welcomed in our community. But when we're considering the EOI and the number of members, the governance, the finances, and the broader community the benefit, I just feel option 2 is a better offer. The Broadview submission offers a far greater option, I believe, for our community with the oversubscription there. And we recommend that we offer that sole lease. But of course, wouldn't be opposed to Broadview entering discussions with Colin Grove to offer them a sublease. I just think the simpler we keep it, the better.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Standard.
I agree with both the speakers. I gave a lot of thought to this and we have to make a decision one way or the other. The one thing that came to my mind was that one of the clubs, if need be, one club is embedded very heavily in the community. The other one could really work anywhere, with what they do. And I think this makes sense. The club that is rooted and embedded within the community and could not operate anywhere else. They wouldn't work. They are the Broadview Tennis Club. I think it makes sense that they be the anchor tenant and negotiate with Colin Grove.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Rebecca.
Yeah, look, I have slightly different views. I think during the consultation phase, that wasn't put to the club, so it was going to be with one club or the other. And just through the chair, what's the duration of the leases proposed? And that's here in the detail somewhere. To the director.
CEO.
Mr. Delano, what term of the lease were we considering as a starting point for negotiations?
So typically under the draft lease policy for 5 years, we would negotiate terms and then bring that back to the council as the recommendation.
Yeah, so look, I'm more of a, because the thing is, you look like Councillor Standard said, you're always going to get a bigger, more embedded community group, but that's with all our facilities. And I think certainly it can be a situation where you can get the more experienced one, and take the facility, which is great, but we're actually really keen as a council to make sure that different people are using it, and they obviously have different strengths and weaknesses. So but certainly I would support the initial staff recommendation, which was the first one, I believe. And that's what sort of came to us after the EOI process. So I'd be supporting option 1 at this stage, but interesting to hear other people's opinion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Tweedman.
I think you have to look at the bigger picture. Like if we keep it as status quo, we wouldn't get would take away opportunities for us to secure future significant funding. So I think we can't do, we need to do something. The model has to change. Can I have a question? Can I have a question to Colin Grove? Or is that okay?
I don't think so.
No, okay. Just based on the information that was presented to us, there was an open expression of interest, and the results came back clearly. Broadview scored much higher than the other, and if we were to apply this rating system to another thing that we were to score on, if an organizer, if the club scored higher compared to the lower one, you'd think that would be the one that we would go for. So just based on that, based on the information that was presented to us, and the set of criteria that was very clear, I'm going to go with the second recommendation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett and then Councillor Holler.
Yes, I think, for, clarity's sake, no, I think one of the speakers, in the deputation to us, spoke about trying to keep things, simple and clear and that, for that. I'm just wondering whether, on the second option, at part 4, it says supports, that, well, it just says supports the administration commencing negotiations. Also, that council, right? So that would be through our director. Supports administration commencing negotiations with respect to a sole lease arrangement with Broadview Tennis Club. And a future report be presented back to the council for consideration. So I'm just wondering, is there in that negotiations to the sole lease with Broadview Tennis Club, and then a future report's going to come back to us. So I'm just wondering, is that through the mayor, perhaps to the director? So is that timing going to allow, negotiation with Broadview as the sole lease, but it's not completely locking out Colin Grove, so they would have to go through the Broadview Club, or in the negotiations between you as council's representative. I'm just wondering how it's going to work.
My understanding would be that we're negotiating with Broadview Tennis Club, and if they wanted to enter into other negotiations, then that's not really what we're getting involved with.
So again, and I'll ask Mr. Delano to clarify here, but my understanding would be if you went with option 2, we will enter into a lease, or we would negotiate a lease directly with Broadview and with NI Tennis. And for example, Broadview and their lease over the courts could possibly then negotiate, I think, as Mark suggested, the possibility of a sublease that we would then need as council to approve. But that there would be no obligation on Broadview to do so, nor would there be any obligation on council to approve that unless Broadview, sort of asked us in good faith. Mr. Delano, anything to add?
Right, other than option 1 effectively provides for both clubs to be provided. Option 2, as the CEO says, effectively it's a 1 club model. However, if Broadview were minded, they could potentially consider whether it's a effective work with Colin Grove or effective work with some additional coaching providers with respect to access to the courts. I think that's an important part of this in terms of there's a number of courts there, and effectively that coaching provision provides an important element of use of that facility outside of sport training. So it's an important part of activation of that facility is the coaching.
Right, thank you. I think it's just important to for us all to be clear on that. Then once this gets passed tonight, assuming it's option 2, then how quickly do things happen?
So yeah,
My understanding is we're looking at a significant transition period, Mr. Delano.
As per through the mayor, in the recommendation, it provides for a 3-year transition out of facility by Colin Grove, unless there was some inclination that Broadview Tennis thought that it's the onus is in them as to whether they'd be interested in having negotiating work to a sublease arrangement. But that wasn't the intent of the motion. The intent is either it's 2 clubs in option 1, or it's a 1 club model option 2.
Right, thank you.
thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Holt.
I really grappled with this one. The first option is one. Ideally, that is something I think we'd all want, but I just see that it's looking quite complex. I also looked at, the scoring of the submission. I thought, 1 club seems to have very good governance. 1, there's that immaturity of their systems and just the setup. So I just, I tried to sort of weigh things up, and you'll have Broadview with that first option as being the main leaseholder, and the Colin Grove is the second. But in some ways, looks like it would just continue on as was. Possibly, unless Broadview, I suppose within the lease is given significant powers. Otherwise, I think it does become, there's a possibility it could become quite messy. So that's why I'm probably looking at option 2 now. I think there's more simplicity there. And there's always the option that Broadview could have Colling Road in there, leasing out some courts and then they're both forced to work together and offer what, the players and community wants. So it's a tricky one, but I'm leaning towards 2, just seeing the first option as fraught with potential issues down the track.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor Trinman?
So after listening to all the deputies today, I'll be supporting option 2. It seems that the clubs are happy to work together, and I have faith that they would be able to arrange that under option 2 with Broadview Tennis Club being the head lease, and they can negotiate amongst each other into final details, but probably make it a lot easier having just the one above. So
Thank you. I think I've already spoken now. So back to you, Deputy Mayor Margaret, sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things that I heard that I just want to reiterate. The first was how we try and keep these matters fairly simplistic, and I think option 2 does that, unfortunately, to the expense of option 1. I think the point someone made was both clubs offer the community something. So this is not about one does, one doesn't, and it would have made our job a whole lot easier if that was the case. It's not the case. Both clubs offer the community something. I think something different, but they both have a community offering. And I want to make sure that we recognise that tonight. To Councillor De Backer's point, I don't think administration put up a preference in options. They were just 2 options. They were in an order, but I don't think that necessarily meant that that was the order of preference. The recommendation says 2 separate options, a standalone recommendation. So I worked on that basis that they were actually 2 separate options rather than an ordered option. The comment was made, the model has to change. If we keep the status quo, we're just going to expect the same outcomes as what we've got now. And I go back to the definition of insanity being someone expecting different results by doing the same thing over and over. And I go back to the court capacity issue. There are times both clubs have said they don't have enough capacity on courts, and both times there is players not using the courts, and that's obviously not being able to deal with by having 2 clubs on side. And the last comment I want to make, which I think is a really important one, which was the comment around consistency about how we deal with tenders and outcomes, because we set a very interesting precedent if we say we've gone through a tender process. We had 10 SSA on the committee, we had internal staff, and with the disparity in the scores, we say, well, we're actually going to set that aside and ignore it and do something different. That sets a very, very dangerous precedent going forward for other projects that we've gone to go at the moment. And I just think we need to have faith in that process, and that's been probably the biggest thing for me in this paper tonight, is the consistency in what we're hearing from that tender process, which was an independent process. And as I said, if the scores were closer, it would have made our job a little bit harder, I think, in that sense, but they were very, very disparate scores in both the clubs and the coaches. So I don't want to harp on that too much, but that's an important point. I really would recommend and support and hope that Broadview have heard the comments from the elected members here tonight around working with Colling Grove. There's a year transition, but in that year, hopefully they can work something out in terms of that relationship between Colling Grove and Broadview and have capacity for both to be on site in some way. But as an administration, it means we get to negotiate 1 lease, not 2 leases. I think that's the preferred approach. It's certainly what I'll be endorsing tonight and how I'll be voting. I commend the motion to the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Greg. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Option 2.
Sorry?
Option 2.
Option 2. All those against? Carried unanimously. Okay, item 10.2, City of Prospect submission, Greater Adelaide Regional Plan, recommendation on page 15. Now, I believe there's been a suggested change to part of this? Would anyone like to move either option A or option B? That's part 2 there. No one?
So. Sorry, I'm happy to get on the floor. I think you just said there's been a change, or haven't seen
Yeah,
any
sorry,
change?
yeah.
Wasn't there some additional?
I would just simply to people to make any comments, they can have them.
So members, what we're talking about here is there's an option to endorse the submission that's been put for you without changes.
Right.
Or if you'd like
One
to
of the
add or
changes.
subtract from the submission, then you need to move that separate piece that does that. And then you could add whatever changes. That's what we're talking.
All good. So I'm happy to move it to get on the floor. Option 1, option A1, whichever we have. I've got my notes there. The note submission, as written, has encapsulated all the matters that we discussed during our recent workshop, and happy to endorse the submission as it stands.
You Councillor Nelson, do we have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, I'm happy not to speak and what the mover said.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor at the back.
Yeah, I'd like to move a potential amendment, some extra notes. If I'm able to do that, I don't know the wording. So I'll just speak to it and then I'll do the wording. Yeah, thank you. So I attended, as some of you did, maybe on the online sessions, the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan discussion paper, which is the high level discussion. The discussion paper is just that there will be a draft that will come back to us next year. But I guess one of the things, if you read through the document, very thorough, but it's actually, this is the way we communicate with our community. And what I was suggesting, and I think now Park has recently done this, is they've actually got some dot points up front. And I noted in our submission, the first thing you read when you read the submission is that we are disappointed. Like, now, I get that, because there's a lot of things in there that we could say, look, this could be better for our residents, could be better for amenities. So I've just talked with the planning team and the director of ways that maybe we can make the document a bit more user-friendly, to say, look, these are some of the points that we've suggested. So again, I don't know if those points were, maybe there's a miscommunication in what time. Maybe through the chair, I might need to ask.
So, Mr. Pearce, are you familiar with the additional wording that Alison has suggested adding to this motion?
Through the mayor, right, and our manager of development is likely to discuss possible amendment already, so further to Mr. McCluskey.
Mr. McCluskey, you able to assist? If you wouldn't mind, please.
Through the chair, so the intent, as I understand them, of the words on the screen are to see the substantive points that are expressed in detail through the submission captured into a high-level summary. I provided some advice for discussion to Councillor De Backer about an initial list of points that incorporated some things within and outside of that list, and ultimately have suggested these words as they allow us to, as administration, go away and give effect to the intent without necessarily wordsmithing precise words to them.
So that's
all right. So my apologies. So my discussions were that there were some points through here that are written in paragraphs, and it was really just to pull out either in bold or in italics as almost subheadings in the almost executive summary. These are the points of discussion, similar to what Mount Barker have done, just so it's really clear to our community. Because all the content's there. I think the only thing we're doing with the document is extracting some of them and basically a mini contents and these are the points that we're addressing. So that just allows them to go away and do that. And I'd be much.
So it's moved as an amendment.
Yeah.
As an amendment.
So the mover and the seconder, okay, with the amendment.
Yeah, it doesn't change the overall content of the submission, so it's fine.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Right.
So we're going to include that as part three.
My understanding, members, is that that is essentially a variation, so that's now
Yes.
incorporated into the original motion. It's no longer an amendment.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? That being the case, I'll head back to the mover to sum up.
I'm good, thanks.
Very much. Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.3, annual financial statements for the year ended 30 June 2023. Recommendations on page 26. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Mark Gregg, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly to really thank a huge amount of work that's gone into this, no doubt by Ginny and her team. I presume this is probably Ginny's 21st annual financial statements as well. So, or not her first, not her 21st, maybe it's Andrew's first. I don't know. Anyway, look, I think there's some interesting numbers in there, particularly in terms of the end of year position, which I think is a positive one from the surplus. But I've drawn people's attention to the one that I think a lot of organisations are suffering from at the moment. That is huge vacancy costs, because organisations just can't get staff. And this is not a council issue. This is a business issue across certainly South Australia, if not more broadly. And then conversely, more cost in trying to get temporary labour in. And I think that's a real challenge for this council as a business, as it is for any business. So I think that's one thing that really stuck out to me as part of the financials. So I think we're looking pretty good, and just to thank again staff for their work on this.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, happy to second. And to mirror Councillor Groot's words, thank you, Ginny. Final result and everything else. So thank you very much. Job well done. One question, if I may, and maybe it's just me not reading things correctly, but going on from what Councillor Groot mentioned, obviously we have had some high vacancy rates, but notice the employee costs have increased by 367 for the year, which is, although it's not as much as what the increment would have been, I expected that number to be a lot higher with the vacancies we've had. Is it possible to get an explanation of why that's not such a bigger number?
Vacancies last year weren't actually that bad. So members, what you will notice, those of you involved in my PDR process, we actually had 3 resignations between October and the beginning of May. From May to now, we've had 11. So that the impact is unreasonably offset towards the more recent months in terms of those impacts. So they will no doubt be more evident in next year's audit of financial statements, and as will the offset costs around temporary labour and a range of other innovative ways that we've tried to keep services running with the staff shortages.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Is there any further discussion? If not, sorry, Councillor Twinway.
I want to thank Ginny and her team, Andrew, for presenting the report to us. It's gone through the audit committees, they've looked at it, they've endorsed it, so I'm really comfortable with the financial statements. One thing I do want to highlight is the parking infringement. Like, it comes up quite often and the amount is substantial over and over again. So I don't know whether we should look at that and think, is that an opportunity for us to do some community education, or have we done enough, or do we need to do more? I think there's work could be done in that space, especially if you follow 5082, every time, there's, that grizzle about infringement. So I feel that, we could either, put more signs, advertise it, do something a little more in that space just to make it, so that it doesn't attract, and whether we attract, a huge amount, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But I feel that we can do a bit more in that space. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Corinne Garrett for coming in and, you know, providing the 2 information management training workshops to the elected members. So it was a very, you know, the topics dry, but she made it really interesting. And so I really want to, you know, thank her for providing that free service to us. So if you can pass that to her, that would be really good.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll head back. So, sorry, councillor there.
Yeah, sorry, thank you for the process and role that have been sitting on the audit in this committee this year. And sorry, this was that was my last meeting. Yeah, so it's been really good, and I would agree with Councillor Nguyen. It is it's an extra 100,000. It's not including the 600,000 or 700,000 dollars that we're already getting. Now, if elected members are aligned, I did move a motion early in the term to quarantine that amount for parking solutions. We're able to relook at that again. But I think what our community wants is actually parking solutions and parking solutions around the village heart. So I think this is a really good reminder of where we need to sort of be looking at spending maybe in our budgets and economies. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No, I'll head back to councillor Group to sum up.
Yeah, it's a good point about the parking one. I think it's I mean, I was in 2 minds that, you know, you do the wrong thing, you pay the fine, but there's also an educative responsibility for council as well. So it's an interesting balance we need to find. And to Councillor Backer's point about her motion, I think it's might be worth revisiting. I'm not sure where the status of that one is, but actually I don't think got supported, did it?
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's quite relevant now. Maybe we'll talk about it again. Nothing else to say. Just any opportunity I get tonight, I'm just going to thank Ginny for 21 years of service in the City of Prospect, but also Andrew for doing the financial statements as well. But thank you, Ginny, for all you've done.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Yeah, carried unanimously. Item 10.4, recommendations on page 82. Do I have a mover? Councillor Drew.
I'll move it. I love the community grant process, and I'm going to love it even more than next year, I think, because we're going to modernise it and do something different. We're going to hopefully, yes, hopefully I'm just getting the nod in the right direction. Certainly support the worthy recipients in the list, and take the opportunity to encourage those that haven't done acquittals from previous years. They probably should. I was just interested in one of them, and I'm just going to think that through, which was. Let me just ask one question. Do all the organisations who have received funding have a presence in the City of Prospect, either as their headquarters base or a large client group that is in Prospect?
So, Ms. Taylor.
Yes, through chair, yes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So really happy to endorse. These are, you know, materially, these are very, very small amounts, but for these organisations, they're very significant, and they create capacity and they create opportunity to do projects and programs in our community. And I'm excited that we can carve out this money each year to do it, but I look forward to next year because I think it's going to offer us some new challenges and new opportunities for the community as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Spenawin.
I think they're all very worthy organisations, and I support this organization.
Is there any further discussion, anything that hasn't been already raised? Councillor Nelson.
What I'd like to make if I can, so I look forward to the upcoming review of the grants policy we discussed from our last workshop, so that'll be exciting. I will express some disappointment. I would have liked to have seen the committee approve the Hellenic Chamber of Commerce grants, only because Prospect has the largest Greek community in SA. So I think supporting them more, I think will benefit us. I know we had an event here earlier this year. There's like 150 people there for that. And the Greek community in Prospect is the largest in the state. So I was disappointed to see that we didn't support them. As much understanding, we're going to give them free rent on Vine Plaza and everything else. I get that, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more support there. But apart from that, I think the grant program is excellent.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor.
I have a small question. In the grant listing here, and I think I missed the workshop, so I probably missed out this. 16 and 17 seem to be the same thing, different amounts. Are they a different process or for different things?
So
separate grants to the same organisation, I believe, Ms. Taylor.
Through the chair, yes, it's moved.
And you wouldn't just roll it into one, or is it for two different projects?
It's through the chair, they're two different projects.
Copy that, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Stanton. Any further discussion? Not, I'll head back to Deputy Mayor Margaret to sum up.
Thank you. Not much to say, but I did want to pick up something that Councillor Nelson mentioned, which was the Hellenic Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry application, and it was remiss of me not to mention that one because I did attend their event here, which was exceptional, and that organisation is now being led by a local resident as well, which is even better. But if I could ask a question, which I can't, I would ask whether there are funds available in economic development to support it beyond just the waiving of fees. But maybe it's a question I'll leave for another time. But beyond that, I think absolutely support the motion and endorse those organisations who are receiving funds this year.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
We're abstaining.
Oh, you're sorry. Carried unanimous. You can't know, you have to vote.
If you don't vote, it's a no, members.
Point of order?
Oh,
Yeah, you've got to vote for your city.
I'll leave the room. Yeah,
So they
simple
can
as.
sit in
Yeah,
vote,
go to the
not-
toilet.
not a no. Yes, they don't want to vote.
You know, you can't.
So resubmit.
Okay, let's vote again. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
Members, that is an awkward one. If you're present in the chamber and you don't vote, it's a no. So that's the rule.
I did forget to mention in my summing up that these funds are only made available because Jimmy's been here for 21 years.
21 years. Yeah.
You're just trying to work Jenny into every.
Absolutely. My challenge tonight.
Okay, item 10.5, Youth Prospect Magazine Report and Proposals, page 101. Other recommendations? Do I have a mover? Or Deputy Mayor Group?
Yeah, happy to move this. This is again, I'm a little bit excited about this one because for a long time we've been talking about doing this differently. It's taken us a while. We've done lots of surveys, we've done lots of focus groups. I am only supportive of option 2 because we have the EDM process every month now as well. And it was interesting to see the numbers grow just in the first 2 editions. And to get a bounce back rate of 0.4%, I think it was, is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Although it is still new, but it's still extraordinary. So look, I'm very supportive of option 2. I'm not totally convinced about elected members not being able to write something in the magazine, to be honest, but I'll leave that to others to debate out. The QR code, I guarantee very few people would click on our QR codes, I think, would be my view. And we know that there wasn't great feedback in elected members' stories in the magazine anyway. We saw that in the survey. But I think it's just an important part of transparency that whether people like it or not, some people might, some don't. But I still like that notion of having, you know, we used to have half a page, we've now got, 200 words. I still like that. But I can live with the QR code. Others might have a different view. I'm happy to, there's an amendment to that to entertain it. But thank you for the work on this one. I think it's really good that we're getting to the point of doing something a little bit different. And certainly the feedback I've had from local residents is they want something quick, they want something a bit more relevant, and they want something electronic. My last comment, because I can't introduce new material in my summing up, is that the fact we're not going to post it, I think is really, really important as well. Because, this time last year, we all started hitting the pavements for elections, as some of us have done for a little while, and you see lots of these magazines kind of not being particularly well utilised, and a lot of them in the red bins. So I think it's not posting is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Group. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'm really pleased that we're moving from 30% recycled paper to 100% recycled paper if we have, the paper options. Again, I'm a bit lukewarm about the councillor message with QR code. I had a almost to the point of anger, a resident saying that well, that means she most probably will never get to read any of our messages. And yes, I think that's still a little bit of work in progress. Even through all our discussions, even before our current staff were here, it's still seems to many people out there that the councillor message is not seemingly as important as our other messages. So I think that's still a work in progress. Apart from that, I think we've had quite good discussion about this and feedback. So let's go and do it.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Has anyone got anything further to add? Councillor De Backer, then councillor Standen.
Yeah, look, a really interesting report, and look, you're never going to get it perfect because you don't have one people to connect with everyone. And look, I'm just passing around, so you know this is Brookville, so they have the mayor in the front, they don't have the councillors, but it's lightweight and to the point. You know, and again, you know, being timely, I think that's an unfortunate thing. The last couple of magazines been out of date, and that's a real shame. That's kind of, you know, we've got other ones from, you know, Glenelg that are, these might be the Traders magazine, and I think our magazines kind of tried to do a bit of both, and maybe it needs to know what it is, I think. And obviously we've got our fantastic elected member ones, you know, so, you know, they're targeted and neat and fast and, you know, really effective. So there's lots of information out there, but when you do the comparison study, I think page 116, if you look at the distribution from the other councils, they're still posting them out. So I think of the 8 comparisons, there's only 2 that don't send them out. So it's still a preferred method. And I think, you know, when you have a look at our reach, I've sort of said to a fellow elected member about, I don't get any complaints now from people, you know, getting them through the mailbox, but I do get a lot of people saying, what's happening with the council? I don't hear anything about it anymore. Because we don't have a local messenger either, and we don't get a look in the advertiser. So even when we got the big piece of land, I don't think that even got in the advertiser. So it's kind of, you know, how you get the message out there. You know, I'm happy to support the motion, but I do think, you know, when you get buy-in or you want to get reach, sometimes something through the letterbox gets your attention. And I know it even does with me. There might be something, there's a fair, oh yeah, you know, the local school or something like that. So I still think it's effective. But you know, we can't be everything to all. So interested to hear any more thoughts.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Standen.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I like something that's printed and handed out. I mean, the messenger left a void, and where you've got a void, you can get misinformation or no information. So I'll always be championing, you know, the old ways, but I also understand that we have to move on. So this is on the path. This is towards the future, and eventually, I guess it'll all be electronic, but not quite.
Thank you, councillor Standen. Any further discussion? Anything that hasn't already been raised? That being the case, I'll head back to Deputy Mayor Group to sum up when you finish reading them. Walk ahead.
Yeah, you can get that
Take your time to.
Oh, no, it's very, I'm just reading about their miniature Christmas pageant. You need glasses to see it. Anyway,
Better on the place.
Funnier in my mind than it was out loud. Look, just commend the motion. I think to Councillor De Backer's point, we shouldn't let perfect get in the way of great. You know, we're going to have to keep evolving this and make sure we kind of do it right. I think the other point was that Councillor Barnett mentioned that we saved $20,000 in this as well, which is you know, not a material saving in the global budget, but still a saving that can go into something else. It could be 20,000 more going to community grants, it could be anything else. And I'm sure Ginny would be happy to see that after 21 years, that we're saving $20,000. That's almost $1,000 a year for her time here. So I certainly commend the motion to you all. Don't let me move the next one. That's what I say.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Group. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.6, City of Prospect Advocacy Priorities Recommendations on page 140. Do I have a mover?
I'll do it again.
21 years.
Okay, I'll do it.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, great, thank you. I think this is having advocacy priorities for council is really, really important. We, over the years, have talked about shovel-ready projects or things that we're passionate about. I'm really comfortable with those topics that we'd identified back in May, although one of them has probably sort of evolved a bit with the purchase of Manuel Road. But I'm I think this is a really good document. I guess the trick for me is how we're going to use it. Because it's great to have it, and it's great to sit on Chris's shelf and John's shelf and everyone else's shelf. Not Ginny's, because she's living up to 21 years. But we need to actually use it. We need to have it as an active document that's being used and promoted, and use it as leverage to get people into our community to talk about what we want to talk about and potentially get funding to do some really exciting projects. So that's a challenge to the CEO and the Mayor, is how they're going to use that. But I think in terms of topic and everything, the design, whatever, is really good. So thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grigg. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson.
Have a second, yeah, great job from the team. My only question, and I might have missed something here, how does this make up, these advocacies are making up part of our strategic community plan? Is this a separate document?
So, yeah.
Yes, it is. So the strategic community plan sets out the broad high-level objectives as informed by the community that the council have set for the next 10 years and potentially beyond. It enables us to plan for the next term, but with a view to the next 10 years. That's where we're going. The advocacy priorities are to inform the discussions that the Mayor and I, and frankly everybody, are going to have every time you're in an elevator with a minister or a local member or someone who's influential. You can either bust out this document or link it to them on the website or hand them a copy, whatever you have. Use it strategically to get it in front of people. What it identifies, and of course it's linked to the community plan members. It has to be, because the priorities in the community plan are what we're pushing for, but what are we advocating for? There's a parallel alignment between the two, but you can't just drop the community plan on someone's desk and say, this is what we want money for. This puts it in a way that is, in essence, possible to use as a leave behind. It's a piece of collateral to support selling our council's business case for funding from federal, state, potentially even the private sector, or potentially even the not-for-profit sector, or other areas where we could secure funding for. So it is a document that obviously supports the intended outcomes of the community strategic plan, but it is a separate document.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Nelson?
No, I'm still grappling with the fact that we're still printing two documents that are almost identical.
Thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Councillor Barney.
Yes, I think picking up on Councillor Nelson's comments, that this sort of takes and picks up, and you look at them all, big ticket items that we really need to get in front of people and to make sure our community I'm sure most of them would understand the importance, especially those with the flooding further down the hill, so to speak. Yeah, I think it's good to have these picked up, taken out, and then it's up to all of us to think of ways. I think that, well, where can we put this in front of people to get some traction?
Thank you. Has anyone else got anything additional to add? Councillor Backer.
Yeah, look, I have similar views to Councillor Nelson. I think it can just be a bit of noise. In many ways, it might be better as an A4 document. Just one A4 is but I do acknowledge that the big conversations are really important. And I certainly think, as an elected member, it's the points in there are really good. And I think it's actually a good document that we can use as part of, questions during the, say, mayoral monthly activity report. We can sort of ask, what meetings are being had, bringing up this, and obviously, the mayor and deputy mayor are representing the council in many occasions. And even as elected members, we're talking to people. And certainly I've been reaching out to people and, either hand them on to the mayor or the directors, because without those discussions, nothing happens. And this helps us be on message. So look, it is useful, but it could be seen as a little bit of noise. A one pager for me is certainly useful.
Thank you, Councillor Backer. Any further discussion? That being the case, I'll hand to Councillor Grigg to sum up.
Just endorse it to the council.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.7 LGA AGM voting preferences on page 170 of the recommendations. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cruz.
A surprise. I know, I'm still getting RSI. Look, I'll just say the same thing I say every time this comes up, which is if you haven't been to an LGA AGM, go. It's really interesting. Some of it's not so interesting, but most of it is. But it's just an experience to be in a room with other elected members, see how the voting process works and see what's coming up. I did want to ask a question around, well, it's not really a question, it's more of a challenge about how we can maybe start thinking about putting some things up for consideration. We were quite active a couple of years ago, I think, in this process. Then the process changed somewhat because there was an additional layer within the LGA to make sure that the really silly things that were put up, not by us, but by other councils, weren't considered by the whole group. But I think it is remiss on us not to maybe be a bit more active in the space. So I just challenge us as a council to think about, I think this is every 6 months. So what might we want to think about in 6 months' time? One that I was just happened to be talking to the CEO about today, which is one we prosecuted in the past, is we had great flexibility during COVID in terms of using electronic meetings. We could attend council meetings by Zoom. We did. It was interesting seeing people eat their dinner as we're talking, but it worked. But why did that have to stop just because we're out of COVID? I travel, I know Councillor Nelson travels a fair bit, so does the Mayor. It would provide a lot more flexibility for us if we're able to do that from time to time. So things like that, I think we should challenge ourselves to think about bringing up being a contemporary council that we are. But otherwise, I'm supportive of the voting preferences in here, and I assume that the Mayor will be voting at the AGM.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Greg. Councillor Blackburn.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify point 2. I just wanted to confirm that the Mayor would be attending the opening on the Wednesday and the AGM all day or the conference.
I'll be attending the AGM.
Okay. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to attend, and I'm sure there's a couple of other elected members attending. And it is great because it's also the item we had before. It's also a chance to talk to those people about what we're advocating for and ask some questions of what their councils are doing as well. So a lot of the stuff that generally comes up is quite common sense things, especially around the SAPN, getting the tree canopy balance right. In clearances, it's never a perfect science. But yeah, I'm looking forward to attending. So yeah, supporting the motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Are you seconding the motion?
I'm seconding.
Yep. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll hand back to the Deputy Mayor to sum up. Looking forward to this.
Well, nothing to say, but I do commend the motion. I was just thinking, the meaning of life is 42, isn't it? I believe that's the child has got it. Actually, divide that by 2, that's 21. That's how many AGMs Ginny would have been here for. In fact, given they meet twice, it would be 42. So there you go. It's an interesting little numbers fact that I was numerically inclined. Well done, Ginny, for 21 years. I commend the motion.
Was that introducing you?
Yes. Maybe.
Let's put it to the vote.
21.
All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.8, City of Prospect Code of Practice Meeting Procedures recommendations on page 173. Do I have a mover?
I would move it to break
That's the vote.
groups. Almost perfect batting score. Yeah, just I just agree. A lot of it hopefully is common sense, really. And over the years, we've gradually introduced more common sense things, and I'm all for if we can, reduce a lot of the bureaucracy and which we still seem to be surrounded with. So. Yeah, encourage people to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, have a second. Had a good. This is, I think, only the second chance I've had to read through the meeting procedures, and as they come up, I've just noticed a few things that could be changed. So I look forward to next year's updates.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Councillor back and then Councillor Group.
You can change them if you want. Yeah, so I've got a few suggested changes, and it's just clarification around the petitions policy. I understood in the that we've got a meeting procedures, which we don't have to have Okay, so there's the legislative requirements, but this is, I guess, for us in our community, so we're clear on what we're doing. But with the inclusion of reference to the petition policy, and I think this is really important, specify that when a member of the public is required to provide their name and address, that only the name of the suburb is required. Because sometimes people can put on a spot and don't want to disclose, in the age of privacy and all the rest of it. I live at this house. I think that's really good to just clarify. So thank you. I think all the movers might consider including that. I mean, that's a communication.
Yeah, Christina and Councillor Nelson, do you support the additional information?
Yes.
Yep. That becomes the motion. Councillor Booth.
I just had one question. I think I had more, but I think for this time I'll just have one. That's around divisions. So the standard practice, I think, for divisions is that you have to stand if you vote yes, not no. We had flipped that some years ago to deal with a particular issue at the council at the time. I'm just wondering if that is a standard LGA provision, that's a yes when you stand up rather than a no, should we just return to that? Because I don't think we have that same issue anymore. I should check, first of all, am I correct that normally you stand up in a division if you vote yes?
We're staying our place.
So
stand.
certainly not Capringa.
Yeah.
The way they did it was you stood up for yes, and then you stood up for no.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure, Mel, whether you've had a different experience.
No, so it's actually in the regulations. So regulation 17 of the meeting procedures regulations specifies that members voting in the affirmative will, until the vote is recorded, stand. Many years ago, that because it is one of the few things within the legislation that councils can choose to amend through a meeting code of practice for meeting procedures, and that is one of the changes that has been made previously to flip that. So in this chamber, if a division is called, members voting in the negative stand, members voting in the affirmative sit. But again, it's your document, and if you wish to take that provision out and revert to the standard legislative scenario, then that's something we can include should you wish.
It certainly would appear that other councils do it differently again, because again, on Capringa do it differently to both.
Look, it's not a deal breaker. As it was at the time, it was to do with a particular behaviour, which Ginny would remember because she's been here for 21 years. But I just wonder whether we're better off having fewer variations from the Act than more. We have a couple of others which I wouldn't argue against, but I'm not seeing any passion around this. I don't really have passion around it either, to be honest, but it was just one anomaly I thought we could fix easily through this process. Could I ask if the CEO maybe has a view on that, or?
CEO,
I have no view, but were you minded to do so? I think a brief part C with the consent of the mover and seconder, assuming they were prepared to accept it, that just suggests that we revert to the wording in the regulation around standing and sitting for divisions.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move that way, and if the movement secretary say see.
Some words.
That we revert to the local government act provisions for divisions.
Someone calls a division, they've got to stand up and voice there. So I like the idea of no standing. Me personally, I like the idea of no standing.
Yeah, courage your convictions. So no, we refuse.
There you go.
I can move it. That's right. I can move it as an amendment now, though, can't I? Should I wish to?
Yes, you may.
But I'll withdraw it. Just want to check if I could. It just brings back horrible memories every time. Apart from that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll head back to Councillor Barnett to sum up.
I think enough's been said.
Thank you very much. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? No division.
Division?
Is it carried?
Yes.
3 games.
It's no time.
Could have said no, Jack. What is to that?
Item 10.9. December ordinary council meeting change of date recommendation on page 203. Do I have a mover? So again, do I have a mover? So councillor Trinity Wynn at the time. It's a dead heat.
How come you can see there and look straight here?
Guys,
And the earliest hours.
thank you, councillor Wynn. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Root.
Gotcha. I second it. I support everything Councillor Norman said. I will just point out that in paragraph 3, it does say if the proposed, it is proposed that December ordinary council meeting date be amended to the 12th of December. If you reverse the one on 21. Well done, Jim. 21 years.
Fine. Is there any further discussion on the motion that hasn't already been put forward? If not, councillor Nguyen would like to sum up. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.10, amendment of council decision Blue Tree Project recommendation on page 204. Do I have a mover? Councillor Trin Nguyen. I'm trying to speak for the motion.
Unfortunate about our tree in Memorial Gardens, but we were able to find an alternate tree at Thornton River, and that's being executed.
Thank you, Bob. Seconder.
Yeah, and I haven't got blue hands. So yeah, it was a very interesting process. So our handprints are, you know, as long as the paint lasts down on the tree. So it's a lovely project, and you know, very happy to support it.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Standen.
Fantastic project. Eastwood is glad to post the Blue Tree. I have a question through the chair. I haven't been down there for the last couple of days. The hoarding, the orange hoarding, is that come down or will that be down soon so we can get a good look at the tree and take photos?
So yeah,
Mr. Galena, are you aware of hoarding around the tree and plans around it?
We'll take that on notice, but the hoarding should have been removed.
Should be down, councillor. We'll look into it.
Copy that.
thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Nguyen would like to sum up. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 11, general business and urgent items. We do have a late report, and I'm going to seek leave of the meeting to accept the late report. I just need a show of hands. Thank you. Further to this, I'm going to seek leave to defer consideration of late report until item 16. Show of hands. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're on to reports for information. These can be resolved on block. Would anyone like to pull out 12.1? No. Would anyone like to pull out 12.2? No. So we're going to move them on block. Do I have a mover? That's the. Why? Would you like to speak to the motions?
No, they're all on block.
Sorry, no.
I moved them
Do I have a
on block.
seconder? Councillor Nguyen. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 14. Oh, 13, council member reports and briefings. We have one tabled by Councillor Nelson. Are there any other reports and or briefings? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, and I do have them listed, and I just didn't have time today, sorry, to put them through. So the 8th of October, I attended the opening of Prospect Pocket Park along with the mayor and other elected members. 12th of October, I attended U3A Inner North Annual General Meeting. 17th of October, I represented the mayor at the dedication of the W.H. Edmonds grave at North Park Cemetery. and I'll send information to elected members about that. It's the first grave site that actually has a QR code for information. Talking about QR codes. The 18th of October, I attended the council's Panthy Kumanga Steering Committee. And on the 22nd of October, I attended a tour by Prospect Local History Group of Rathmans on our local history property, and at Salisbury Terrace, Collinswood, with the new owners. So they're very keen about our history and about preserving the Rathmans. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further council member reports and board briefings? Councillor Backer.
I attended a safety and council webinar last week. I don't know if anyone got that email. It was really, really interesting. So, and it was a little bit about council procedures, and a little bit about how democracy works. And certainly in the last government elections, you know, post-COVID, we had a lot of people running to council with all different views, and so there should be. But if anyone's been following on from what's been happening at City of Salisbury and just managing behaviours, I don't think it's news, you know, it's democracy, but it's managing behaviours in the chamber. So certainly I think the administration will probably be all over that, I can't imagine. And so, you know, and I think it's just good to be mindful, just from a safety point of view as well, because it was really quite distressing to hear some of the poor behaviour of the public towards staff and elected members. So just, you know, I would reiterate to elected members and to staff, you know, if you're ever concerned or feel threatened or whatever, we actually had a member of SAPOL on the webinar. And just address those concerns, get things in writing and let someone know because they're not here license. So yeah, that was very valuable. The other one that I attended, which was later last month, was the economics of housing solutions. That was by the Economic Society of Australia, and that was done with Builders Uni, and it was really, really interesting. So it was actually about the, you know, everyone say, oh, there's an affordable housing issue. Yes, there is, but how you actually make it work financially, because people aren't going to build houses if there's no money in it. So we're seeing builders going bust already, you know, and so I think it's only getting worse with the pressure. But really, really interesting. So left of centre stuff, free, didn't cost ratepayers anything. But yeah, it's really good to learn as an elected member to find out some things. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further reports and or briefings, Councillor Twinowin?
I attended the social dinner, the Layout and Lions Club social dinner along with Councillor Nelson. Myself and a few other councillors also attended the community safety forum that was run by Lucy Wood at Bourne Park. I think I'll see that.
Councillor Trinwin.
As Councillor Barnett and I also did the room yesterday, particularly with as a class for family for students. So just get that.
Thank you. Thanks everybody.
Yes.
Okay, item 14.1, motions on notice, national notice, St Helens Park Rotunda. Recommendations there. Moved by Councillor Backer. Would you like to speak to the motion?
I just briefly, so I need no introduction. Look, I'm really glad to see this funded, and I'm glad to see the work that's gone in behind. I think I'm just, you know, getting in the agenda so that, again, the community is clear that we're on it and we're aware of it. And I think, you know, certainly if there is any consultation to be done or designs to go out to community coming up to Christmas, it may be into the new year before that happens. So I understand there will be, it might suffice this, a workshop coming in November, but given some of the other big projects we've got going on, it may be pushed out. So this is really just to capture that we do get a workshop coming back to us in a timely manner. I would encourage you to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Backer. Do I have a second? Councillor Crook.
I'm happy to second this. There is a lot of community interest in this particular site, and it does also feature regularly on social media. So I think any updates, a good update on this one. So I look forward to hearing what's going on.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? In the case, I'll head back to Councillor at the back to sum up.
Thank you for supporting it. We did used to have a house in St Helens Park that actually fell into disrepair and had to get demolished. So there's a similar theme here. So certainly maintenance, and you know, I think I'm really keen to see something happening. And I'm sure the community will welcome a workshop, and there might be some interested community members that may attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Okay. Questions with notice there are nil. Confidential items, we have the late item on the agenda. Turning off. So